Let me just confirm if it's live already. Just double checking. Yes, we're live. Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sports Talks at Kai Serrano. Yes, we're live. Great. Just some sound coming back, sorry. Welcome to Sports Talks at Kai Serrano. My name is André Gribel. I'm your host for this evening. And on today's show, we are discussing the independence of sports before national courts, alongside my good friends and great sports lawyers from Ecuador, Santiago, and from Azerbaijan, Farid. So before we start the topic, I would like you guys to please introduce yourselves. First, Santi.
Hello, Andre. Thank you very much for having me here. It's always a pleasure to let me speak alongside our good friends. Now we have Farid. I hope everything is doing fine in all of you. I'm a sports lawyer. I'm working in Guayaquil, Ecuador, which is my city. I work with some first division clubs, second division clubs, and third division clubs. I'm working also for Pan American Badminton Confederation. So it's been a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Santi, for once again contributing with the channel and sharing your views. And we also have Farid. Farid, please introduce yourself.
Hello, Andre. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Farid. I am lawyer at Azerbaijan Bar Association and at Azerbaijan Volleyball Federation. And I am also the member of the local committee on steps and transfer of the players in Azerbaijan.
Yeah, that's very good. Like that, we have views from all over the world, from South America to opposite sides of Europe, as I am in Portugal and Farid is in Azerbaijan. And it's good for us to share our views, and also you guys that are following, please feel free to comment and share your impressions and questions. That this is supposed to be a chat among ourselves on video, but with your participation as well in the comments. Before we get in the subject, I allow myself just to give a brief introduction following Ken Foster's article entitled, "Is There a Global Sports Law?" It's included in one of many of Aster International's books about sports law, which is a great publication, regarding the existence of a lex sportiva, of the independence of sports law among the other branches of law. And it says that the regulations of sporting federations, which are private organizations, they bind every participant of their sport, of the sport they organize. And we have FIFA for football, IAF for athletics, FIBA for basketball, and they represent an independent legal order which is autonomous from national courts and governments. This allows these private regimes of international sporting federations, as the IOC is another great example for Olympics, to be legally unaccountable except by arbitration systems established and validated by those very same private regimes. This system allows the federations allows the international governance of sports. Sporting federations abiding to the general principles of law that are international, those such as the right to be heard, the priority of weapons. They will legislate on specific topics, such as the rules of their own games, of the sports they organize, the ethical principles involved in that sport, such as integrity, sportsmanship, uncertainty of the outcome, which is what makes sports so interesting, and the contractual law they determine should be followed by those that want to participate in that organized sport. And these acts result in an international lex sportiva, which is categorized by having transnational norms, meaning they affect several different countries. They aren't of a unique nation. A unique jurisprudence, which is CAS for all sports, which is the Court of Arbitration for Sports in Lausanne, and each federation with its own jurisprudence. And also some constitutions recognize the autonomy of sports, such as the Brazilian constitution that recognizes it, that sport should be able to organize itself on its own without the interference of the state's interests or decisions. And in addition to that, it derives from Lex Mercatoria, the Lex Sportiva, which is the general rule of market we are so acquainted with. There are norms regarding international customs, the practice of commercial contracts among companies from different nations, the usage of arbitration as a way of dispute resolution instead of going to national courts, and like that, the prevention of the application of national laws. And it's also important to highlight that these federations, such as the IOC is the best example of that, they are a quasi-state structure because of their magnitude and the effect they have in other nations. They refrain themselves from being judged by national courts of other nations because they are almost as a nation their own, and being responsible to coordinate the sports and to determine the rules to be followed by clubs, athletes, all of those that want to participate in that sport need to follow. So that's the idea behind the Lex Sportiva that regulates this private system and determining the rules to be followed by all of the ones involved. Whenever a player signs a contract, this, for instance, a football player, this contract is tied to the National Federation, which is tied to FIFA. And in the end, the player signs a contract with having to abide to FIFA rules because FIFA is on the top of that chain. And what we had recently that raised the discussion again is the coronavirus outbreak, which led to national leagues in football to end their championships earlier, such as in the Netherlands, Belgium, France. And this resulted not only in sporting impacts, such as clubs being disallowed to fight and the uncertainty of sports, which is knowing who will be the champion or who will qualify to continental competition, who will be relegated, promoted, but also on financial aspects, such as the ones of TV rights, sponsorships agreements, and ticketing that are so important for the health of this industry. With that in mind, I would like to give the floor first to Santiago and then to Farid to discuss their views on the interference of national states on sporting matters. So please, Santiago.
Well, thank you very much, Andre. You did a very good introduction. I want to mainly focus on Ecuador because that's where I'm living, and I know some cases that has been kind of difficult to handle. The last case we had is that there's a problem of interpretation according to the board of the Ecuadorian Football Federation. So the president lost the support of this board, so he cannot work on a very proactive way to say that, so he can be with the obligation he has as president. Okay, so then came the vice president. He has been talking, he has been involved with all the clubs, and with that in mind, well, he believed that he can now, and also the board believe that he should be the one entitled to manage and control the Ecuadorian Football Federation. So that was the problem: vice president against president. The rules never said that that the president could be unauthorized or removed from the place as president and put in a different place from the board. So that comes the problem. Our rules are not sufficiently uh, well developed. We have some gray areas. So in that places is where everyone tries to move to get a different point. Now we send our question to FIFA. FIFA is the one who's gonna decide what's gonna be the next step. But there were some lawyers here, and I believe that's the main issue. We don't see, I don't know, but in Brazil, I believe in a couple of years ago, now they have included sports law as a career or a subject to have it in the universities. But this is a very new subject, so there are a lot of not gray areas, but misknowledge. Okay, so because of we have to consider also that the other part of the way try to be very approach to the civil law. That's the thing we have in Ecuador. So if there's a gray area in sports law, and we have a lot of gray areas in sports law, they try to fill it with civil law. Okay, so in some cases it could be, but not in all cases. I know we have a lot of things to develop on sports law, and I know we're going to be here for the next 30 years trying to complete the things that are not complete by now. But there are some mistakes that have been making some lawyers. So that's the problem that we're having right now. Can we fill the places that it's empty with civil law, with criminal law, or we just have to be patient on the constant evolution of sports law? So that's the thing that we are discussing here in Ecuador.
Good. It's good to have the impression of other countries because it Lex Sportiva entitles itself of being an international mechanism. So it has to coexist with several national systems, and learning about the different systems, we get a better view of the difficulty of that happening and how resistant some countries may be to it. And also regarding gray areas, that's the place where us as lawyers play on. It's trying to find loopholes and gray areas in the advantage of our client or of the idea we support. So there's also the necessity of existing gray areas for law to develop. And in Azerbaijan, Farid, what is the situation? What's your impression about state interference in sports?
Thank you, Andre. Well, to add to the point made by Santi, the same was happening in Azerbaijan. I'll take the example of volleyball and later the football, because the quarantine regime in Azerbaijan was supposed to end on 4th of May. And as such, based on that decree of the government, all mass events, including cultural sportive events, were cancelled. And as such, the Volleyball Federation had to cancel all the remaining games and trainings and to postpone the championship until the further date. But when the government decided to extend the quarantine regime, the Volleyball Federation had to cancel the championship and to declare the first ranked team as champions and the one to represent Azerbaijan in European clubs. What was different in football was that before the government decided to extend the quarantine regime, our national professional football league announced on TV that they were thinking about resuming trainings as well as the championship, and a few weeks after the quarantine officially ended. However, since the government now extended the quarantine regime, the professional football league now has to wait what will be the further actions, because during the press conference, the government official didn't say explicitly what are they thinking about the football and mass events, and on the other hand, there is UEFA approach which says that the football leagues and federation has to give some plan on resume and finish date of the championship. So it's kind of a little bit complicated here, considering that it's not clear whether the government will announce restrictive measures upon the finish of the quarantine regime, or will they still ban gatherings like football teams and trainings and games?
Yeah, it's important. It's good to have the view of another sport. It's within the same sports industry, but it's a different reality. Volleyball and the results of terminating a season earlier, and interesting seeing the comparison between what happened to football and to volleyball, because they're all factors of the same issue, which is allowing competitions to go on or terminating them early. And the effects of it not only being sporting, as you mentioned, which will be the club representing Azerbaijan in European competition, but also financial. So ticketing, as you said, will games happen with fans or not? I think ticketing, it's an important aspect, but it should be the one to be, it may be the one that can be put aside, because ticketing, if you are to have games without fans, it jeopardizes the show, but it's only a small aspect of it, ticketing. But tied to that, we have TV rights and sponsorship agreements. And regarding TV rights, for instance, here in Portugal, the championship is to resume in June. There are 10 rounds left to be played. And all stadiums were verified to see if players and staff would be able to come in and get out without being close to each other and avoiding the propagation of the virus. Teams are flying in private jets, in private planes for the matches, especially the ones in the islands. And so matches are happening. They are happening without fans because of that worry. And something that was very much discussed was, okay, since fans won't be able to attend the matches, should these matches be aired for free in national public television? And the league raised an interesting argument, in my opinion, which is the private broadcasters are the ones putting money in the industry and allowing it to happen. The amounts involved in TV rights are immense. So they assist on the health of the system, and it wouldn't be fair to take them out now, which is a period of need, and they are the ones putting the money in. So sport will be shown still on pay TV, and this will help the health of the clubs and will help the competition continuing, and the same for sponsorship. All of the companies that put money or provided equipment to be worn by the players will have it shown and will have their money investment fulfilling its expectation. So that's ticketing. In the end, it's important, but it's something that can be put aside if we are able to have the other factors. And another point on that area is that regarding promotion, relegation, we have very interesting discussions all around Europe at the moment regarding the subject, because in France, for instance, the championship ended earlier, and this made Lyon, in a lot of years, not being able to qualify to European competition, which is a team that it's always qualifying, and they have payments, salary obligations connected to that reality of qualifying every year, and they didn't qualify this year because of the early termination of the competition. In lower leagues, clubs that are trying to reach promotion and all the money that comes with promotion, in each level of competition, we have more investment from all of the players involved. So if a club goes from second to first division or from third to second division, the gain, it's huge, and all of the dedication they put into this went to waste with competitions being ended earlier and not being thought of a different solution to help it end. And regarding this subject of trying to keep competitions on before we move on to the next subject, I would like to listen to Santiago's impressions of what was the solution found in Ecuador to avoid the movement throughout the country, and like that, have competition without the propagation of the virus.
Thank you, Andre. Well, in Ecuador, for now, it has been proposed by the Ecuadorian Professional Football League that it's going to be two different or two separate tournaments. One on the coast region, one in the mountain region, because we have, well, coast, mountain, and jungle. We don't have clubs in the jungle, and of course, we don't have clubs in Galapagos. But I wouldn't mind if there's a club in Galapagos and they want to hire a sports lawyer, of course. Okay, going back to what it really is serious. Trying to avoid movement because supporters in Ecuador are very attached to some big clubs, and also there are clubs that have their own supporters in each city. Okay, so and also cities have had struggles with coronavirus on different ways, on different intensity than different cities. For example, my city, Guayaquil, was had the worst impact of coronavirus. I can say maybe Cuenca didn't have the same impact. So you're trying to avoid that, and for that, there's going to be two different tournaments for coast region, for the mountains, and the champion of each region is going to play each other, and that would be for at least in 3-4 months. Training are going to start at June. They're supposed to train only 6 players, then we move to 15 players, and at the end we move to 25 players. On July is going to start the competition. So it's gonna be interesting because I've heard also that in Argentina the tournament is over, but how are they going to play the matches for the international cups such as South American Cup, Copa Libertadores, that are very important, and in some cases is the most important title to win. Maybe in Ecuador we don't focus too much on Copa Libertadores or Sudamericana because it's kind of far of our expectations, but for a team such as Flamengo or River Plate, it's very important. So it's going to be something new to watch. I believe that as we were speaking on the independence of on the courts, we're going to see, as you were talking about TV rights, we're gonna watch or see a lot of claims, not only because of a sports contract, but related to sports. As you were mentioning, that's something that is not happening in Ecuador. They have not discussed on TV rights, but I'm pretty sure that in a couple of months they're going to discuss, because it's for now it's the biggest income we have.
Yes, thank you for your impressions. It's a time to be creative, to try to keep competition instead, even with the COVID-19. And I would like to share with you a question that was presented. Why is it so important to recognize sports law as a separate branch? And wouldn't sports law be a gathering, from what I can tell from the question, of different areas of law? First, my personal impression is that sports law, first of all, this dispute is more ideological than practical. I think some people are more protective of a pure sports law, and others understand that different areas of sport are within sports law. But the idea of focusing sports law, in my opinion, is allowing students, especially in university, as it was mentioned by Santiago and presented in the question on the comments, to show students that there is this industry as well, to apply their efforts, that have separate regulations from the ones of the state. They will have, FIFA has its own regulations, IAF has its own regulations, every federation will have its own regulations, so learning how to apply them, and national FAs as well, and understanding how to apply areas of labor law, of commercial law within sports. I would say would be more or less in that area. And I would like to hear Farid first, and then Santiago.
Universities, because first of all, it has become such a unique part of laws that you cannot ignore it as say that it cannot be a separate part of law, because even the countries that don't recognize the precedent law has to some extent has to accept the jurisdiction of Court of Arbitration for Sports and enforce its decisions, and have to bind to certain principles and statements recognized by Court of Arbitration for Sports. And even, you know, there are some countries which have special labor regimes, which is not possible under certain countries. So I think sports law has emerged as separate and independent section of law, and so that's why it should be taught as separate parts of law, as like criminal law or civil law. So it shouldn't be seen as one the same part of law.
And thank you for it. And also complementing, taking advantage of the fact that you're not only a sports lawyer, but also a lecturer in Baku University. So you may please share the topics you teach, the interest and attention of the students, and the topics they want to find in international sports law that they cannot learn elsewhere.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the faculty I'm teaching at now, they recently introduced the sports law section as part of master's degree, and because it's very recent and innovative section of law for us, so we didn't have many specialists or teachers, professors in this field, but there are many students who are willing to learn sports law, which they cannot do independently, like by doing some research or working from home. And so they have to have some kind of teacher or master who will point to the right path, and you know, to teach them certain aspects which they cannot find independently. I think it has been, and since taking into account Azerbaijan experience with recent sports events such as Formula One, Islamic Games, European Games, and there's certain need for specialists who are specialized in sports law. Before that, usually clubs or the respective subjects referred to foreign lawyers who had deeper knowledge, who had to deal with cases, and so our officials had to refer to foreign lawyers to settle the problems. But now, after we have local students who will gain experience in maybe 2 or 3 years will have local resources, so we won't have to refer to foreign lawyers to deal with certain disputes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's creating the knowledge and teaching so that students understand they can be a part of the system, that it's a work. You don't need to give it to clubs or to foreign lawyers, as you mentioned, and even help moving and feeding the national workforce and work opportunities. And also, I'd like to hear from Santi his views on sports law being a special sector of law, and also his experience receiving interns from institutions such as ISDE Madrid, and the knowledge he passes to these students that come to his office, and yeah, how he teaches them this very special branch of law.
Well, first of all, I couldn't agree more with you too. I mean, this is our branch. This is what we do for living. I grew up on a system that said that you cannot live from sports, and now I can prove them that without sports, I couldn't take some bread to my table. So the thing is that in South America, we're just developing. We're just taking our first steps. You will see that most, I would say 75% of the clubs, of first division clubs, uh, deals with regular lawyers, civil lawyers, commercial lawyers, criminal lawyers, and most of them are making the same mistakes. They are just working, trying to solve some things very quick. They don't know some concepts that you already know. They don't know rules that we know, or guidelines made by FIFA that are very necessary to administrate your club. And the thing is that as there's a president or a manager that is controlling a club, or there's a manager behind the player, and he specialized on moving players and all these regulations. You need to have a sports lawyer that knows the rules, so you won't mess up. In Ecuador, there are so many problems because, as I say, most of the lawyers are regular lawyers that does not know how to receive more incomes, how to avoid extra payments. We tend to think that football is our bank, so we will always have money there. But that's why most of the clubs have gone through process of bankruptcy before. I don't want to I'm not I'm very objective, and before, I believe that before a sports lawyer is when all the football, the system, or the industry went bankruptcy, and then they were trying to, okay, let's find people that knows this, that try to work with regulations, so we can start growing up as an industry. And I believe now we have a very strong industry that, of course, needs to fix some things, but we're on a good way. Then moving to the part of having interns, well, there's a lot of things to do in Ecuador, so that's how I seduce the interns. I had one student from Finland, Ida. She was really good. She didn't speak any Spanish, so we have to work with a Pan American Badminton Confederation making the rules, and it was very important for her to learn about this, and also very important for the confederation to have sports lawyers that could help them to be allied with the rules of Badminton World Federation. The other student I had, Gilberto, now he opened his own law firm in Puerto Rico. I hope he's watching us. He must be watching us. And I believe that's the first sports law firm in Puerto Rico. So we are kind of a big family. I know Farid from Azerbaijan. I know you from Brazil that are also working in Portugal, and we're trying to do this at the beginning. I don't know how many civil lawyers or criminal lawyers or commercial lawyers do this kind of talks, so they can discuss, they can learn from other countries and try to apply it. So I believe it's very, very important, but not only for sports law, because there will be a moment that everyone would take a step on a different direction. I don't know, environmental law, it's also very big, and it's important not for only for sports law, but for law itself.
Yes, I agree with your impressions and the need of learning and knowing these specificities of sports law. And as you said, your former intern was a pioneer in Puerto Rico, as you were in Ecuador. And it's important to highlight that as well. And it's a growing industry. So we need to specialize and to create opportunities and to take opportunities within such an industry. And going to the following topic, which is the cases being handled by national states, not only this direct interference, as you mentioned, that competitions should end, but cases related to sport being dealt by national states. I have the example of Brazil, where I worked before coming to Portugal, where employment-related disputes will mostly be dealt by national courts. The ones regarding image rights as well, image rights of the players. And it is understood and accepted that these areas should be dealt by labor law instead of being dealt by sporting federations. But at the same time, in again, the example of Brazil, in Brazil, we have a national federation that has an independent dispute resolution system. And clubs and players go to this dispute resolution system, which is independent from state, to solve their issues that are related to sports. And it's not the reality of all countries. A lot of countries do not have dispute resolution systems or arbitration systems that allow matters being solved without the interference of states. So most claims will be dealt by the state, while they should be dealt by sporting federations. And I would like to know about the reality in your countries and how you see this issue of sporting matters being taken into state hands. So first Santiago and afterwards Farid.
Well, first of all, I want to say that there was a moment when I was discussing about the problem that we have here about, between the president and the vice president, who's going to be the new president of the Ecuadorian Football Federation, that there was, well, I wouldn't say a threat, but there was a letter by the Minister of Sports here, and she said that we have to take care and to watch out what we were doing. So the thing was that if I have to consider, of course, I respect the Minister of Sport and the work they're doing, but at the end, that's also part of a national court with national powers or a national enforcement. But at the end, you're playing tournaments for FIFA, authorized and done and created by FIFA. And that's the ones that you are looking at. So if there is a problem at national level, you will have to deal with national level consequences. Okay, but with FIFA, it's going to be a huge problem. I mean, if FIFA comes to Ecuador and say, look, you are not interpreting, correcting the rules, or you are not including our principles, I'm going to remove you from CONMEBOL competition, for example. That's a threat that it's really scary for any of us. But if the Minister of Sport of Ecuador says, look, Ecuadorian Football Federation, I'm going to sanction you with what can you put at the same level as not playing a tournament for CONMEBOL, such as Copa America? Or what can you put us on the same level that saying to your clubs, look, sorry, I messed up. So next year we're not going to play Copa Libertadores, but we can play the tournament that Ecuador is organizing inside. Well, there's no interest. I mean, I have to be very, very direct with this. So and I know there are some enforcement that are very to take care or to mind on, but there are others that if I have to choose, I will follow FIFA rules or FIFA guidelines rather than some of the domestic. I'm not saying that let's only follow FIFA rules. Of course, I'm not saying that, but right now FIFA is very strong on that position. So everyone are including this. I know in the statutes of FIFA, I believe it's Article 18, the obligations of each federation. And in the obligations of each federation is to renounce of national courts, the independence of national courts. So you have it also in the statutes of your federation, and then the federation sends these statutes to FIFA to be approved, and also they send it to Ecuador's government, to the Minister of Sports, and they also approve it. So at the end is what can Minister of Sports says if she's the one who approved the statutes? Who's the one who's going to interpret the statutes of football or of basketball or of badminton? It's first the confederation, then the international federation that has these powers to do that, and the trust, because you believe that because they are behind this desk full of sports, they know that. So that's also, I would say it's a mixture between the topic we were mentioning before about the specialization on sports law and on any sports matter, and the independence.
Yes, because like we said before, the idea of sporting federations regulations is to be transnational. So is to affect every nation, and it shouldn't be a matter of each nation deciding, okay, this I will apply, this I won't apply. The idea behind it is if you want to play this organized sport, you should abide to its rules and not apply it as you wish. And Farid, in Azerbaijan, what is the reality? What is the interference of state court within sporting matters?
As you might know, FIFA in its statutes says that recourse to ordinary courts is prohibited with few exceptions. The same provision is stipulated in the Charter of Azerbaijan Football Federation. So don't allow to recourse to ordinary courts, and only the dispute can be brought before the committee, which I am a member of, the Committee on Status and Transfer of the Players. And all local disputes should be submitted to this committee. If there's an international element in the dispute, then they can refer to the relevant bodies of FIFA. The problem with this committee in Azerbaijan is that many players or agents or the club even the club officials, sometimes they don't know even of this existence of this committee. They ask me like sometimes where can we appeal or where can we go to the national court. So I think the Football Federation has to educate these officials and players where to apply, when to apply, and how to apply, so that they're aware how to defend their rights. And we have the law on fight against doping substances and methods in sports, where there's clear provisions that any decision passed by disciplinary committee or the appeal committee of the local anti-doping agency may be brought before the Court of Arbitration for Sports in Switzerland. That's clearly written in the law. But again, I have seen many people who want just to go to the national courts without being aware that it's not possible. So I think the Football Federation, the local anti-doping agency, and all these bodies should work together and educate people on how and where they can solve their problems. Because right now the situation is that they only see the national courts as a way of solving their problems. With foreigners, it's a little bit easier because they know they can refer to FIFA, but sometimes I have seen cases where local players would like to refer to FIFA or to the relevant bodies of FIFA instead of going to the committee by the federation. So, but we haven't seen any cases where the local football player or the agents referred to ordinary courts when they had certain problems with the club, or the club referred to. So it hasn't been the case here.
Yeah, it's an important point to educate everyone that it's involved in the industry. I am aware that FIFA does that with national federations, and national federations should do it with their affiliated clubs as well. And there's also, as both of you mentioned, the international factor, because it also helps stakeholders, clubs and players, to see their right respected. Because if you have, for instance, I'm a Portuguese club and I have a demand against, I don't know, a Moroccan club, if I take the issue to Portuguese dispute resolution system, the Moroccan respondent will never have the obligation to abide. The idea behind it is also allowing international matters to be dealt and to have a binding decision at the end that will be respected. They know, because if they're not respected, there are consequences, such as transfer bans for football, transfer ban, point reduction, relegation, and there are methods to help to enforce the decision. And it should be seen also as a help from the international federations, and not only international federations being sneaky and trying to avoid the application of national rules. And adding to this, another question that it was asked is if we are aware of clubs and media, as well as other stakeholders, actions in the protection of sport. And yes, and the other point is a comment to what we previously discussed. From what I'm aware, in England, for instance, TV rights were paid. They were paid in 2 installments to the clubs. They were paid in 1 installment when the league started, and in a second installment in mid season, which was in winter, in January. And now the championship is suspended. So it created this uncertainty. They put so much money in and they would not get the result back. And clubs and the league and also media are discussing to find a way to have the league back on. Teams are already training again, and the idea is the league to be back on in mid-June. And as of Portugal, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, the championship will restart in June, in the first weekend of June, and there was a pressure for the games to be broadcasted in public TV, but the league highlighted that one of the major supporters of the league, it is TV rights and it is paid pay-per-view. So they will resume the league, and the league will be shown only via pay-per-view as it was before, to respect these contracts. And I see a lot of clubs trying to get the league going, even if without supporters, because of that, because they depend on that money. Some of the monies weren't received yet, and they depend on it for their health. So I see a strong effort from the stakeholders to have competitions concluded at this moment. I would like to hear your thoughts, please, Santiago and Farid.
Well, yes, in Ecuador the same. We're not we don't have the problem that the league had started. We only had played for 5 matches, so it was, and this tournament also was going to be shorter because of a Copa America, because of Copa Libertadores, Sudamericana, and well, we're not dealing with the problem of the a first payment or a first of the TV rights. So that was not the issue, but of course it's very important because it's an industry, and now they're trying to secure all the industry itself. They have applied new guidelines, rules to ensure that the health of the players, of the first of the players, because it's going to be closed door matches. So that's also to have in mind because of, I don't know, I was discussing with a colleague yesterday, and what happened if one of the players get sick with a coronavirus. Maybe they can blame it on the rules, or they do not follow the rules of the FIFA or CONMEBOL or football, Ecuadorian football league. So we're not having problems by now. Let's see in a couple of months. But for now, it's TV rights were sold for 10 years, and there have not been any discussion, at least that I know.
Good, good. Yeah, it's a topic that generates discussion, and it's good to see that everywhere the efforts are more or less the same to have competitions concluded, even if in different manners. And in Azerbaijan, Farid?
Actually, there haven't been any discussion regarding the TV rights or TVs that broadcasting the local championship, because I remember a few years ago there was a dispute between the channels and the professional football league, because professional football league set up the higher amount and the TV channels were not willing to pay that sum, stating that the interest is low and people prefer to watch in stadium rather than at home watching local championship. But during this period, certain clubs switched to online TV, which some started broadcasting on their website. And this led to confrontation with the professional football league, which stated that it's illegal because the rights to broadcast is upon the professional football league. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, it's sold out already. There has been a tender, and one or two channels are the main broadcasters, and they split the games they show. So far, there hasn't been any discussion regarding the suspension of the championship and its impact on broadcasters. And since it's most likely that our championship will resume, so probably the TV broadcasters will get their money back.
Yeah, thinking about creative solutions for sometimes problems without the wished solution. And with this comments and these ideas shared, we end to today's session. Before I do so, I invite you both to say your goodbyes. And first of all, thank you very much for everyone that followed, that commented, shared your opinions, your thoughts. And more every week we'll have new discussions, new topics. So please stay tuned.
Well, thank you for inviting us first, Andre. You're doing an amazing job with these sport talks. All the guests that you're having, I'm very impressed. I know you for now 2 years, so it's very good. I'm very happy for what you are achieving. The page. I hope everyone continues supporting the page. Please feel free to give us tips or topics to discuss. We're gonna be delighted to talk about this. And well, I hope more and more Ecuadorians start looking to the page, and also people from around the world. And stay tuned, and we'll see you another time for more discussions on sports law.
Thank you very much, Andre, for having me here tonight, and Santi for fruitful discussion, and for those who commented and asked questions. I hope it will go on, and it was nice to discuss and share my opinion today.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Santi. Thank you, Farid. I know it's tough finding the time in your agendas to participate, and thank you very much for sharing your impressions and for being available to share a bit of your knowledge with me and with everyone that followed the show. And to everyone out there, thank you very much. We'll see you soon for sure. Every week there's a new episode, a new chat, a new discussion. And see you later, guys. Bye.